2 weeks ago, the New York Mets led a very, very weak NL East, and it looked as though they were poised to take that division, with Atlanta missing their best two players in Soroka and Acuna Jr., and the Phillies being a very top-heavy team that lacked bullpen depth and had some injury issues. However, the Mets then had to play the Dodgers and the Giants for 2 straight weeks, and they came out of that stretch incredibly bruised, and they had only won 2 games out of all those series. I think it was of 13 matches they played. And what happened was the Mets plummeted all the way to a losing record. And there's my boy, Mark Pryor, one of my favorite players ever, talking to his gallant ace, Walker Buehler, who is going to stay in the game here in a huge situation, facing Jeff McNeil, the 2019 All-Star. Jeff McNeil, in many ways, is sort of a great representation of this year's Mets. He was doing incredibly well a couple years ago. If you look at OPS, he's in the 140 range, a very solid player. And this season, he's really underperformed. So let's see how Buehler attacks him with 2 men on. McNeil swings over the first pitch for strike 1. And the reason that McNeil is a microcosm of the Mets is because if you look down the roster, people who were above average last season for the Mets, like your Dom Smiths, your Brandon Nimmos, your Jeff McNeils, they have all taken big downswings this season, and in addition to a ton of injuries, it's really made the Mets very frustrating to watch and a very troubled team. And a ball is outside there. That is a broadcasting side lag spike. That's not on my end. So how is this incredibly talented and intelligent pitcher Walker Buehler going to attack Jeff McNeil here? Jeff McNeil, of course, was very good a couple years ago, but is in a huge slump at the moment, like a lot of the Mets. And throughout this series, the Mets have had a lot of one-run losses, and that's been true of their season in general. Buehler gets another weak grounder here from McNeil, so McNeil has to defend with 2 strikes. Buehler getting up there at 100 pitches, and this is one of those inciting incidents, big at bats in baseball, where the pitcher is running his pitch count up, there are a couple guys on, and whether the batter gets a hit or he gets out, it's going to be one of the last batters that the pitcher faces for that day. And Walker Buehler, of course, is the intellectual successor to Clayton Kershaw, sort of their ace of the future as Kershaw wears down. McNeil fouls another one off. The Dodgers have such a deep bullpen with Knebel, Joe Kelly, Kenley Jansen. They have an embarrassment of riches down there, and that's not even mentioning the guys that are hurt, like Dustin May, who blew his arm out a couple months ago. And you look at a guy like Julio Urias, who they'll just use in the bullpen when the playoffs come. The Mets are really in a lot of trouble here, even if they get Buehler out of the game. And a breaking ball is actually bounced there, and it gets away, and the runners will advance. So now a single, assuming it isn't right at a fielder, can potentially score both runs and tie the game up. And it goes 2-2 to Buehler. And whenever pitchers enter this sort of end of the game, all right, empty the tank, let's see what you've got left, you have to get this guy out stage, whenever they start bouncing breaking balls and runners are advancing and getting into these high pitch counts, it sort of ups the variance and makes it more difficult to deal with if you're the pitcher's team. If you're Mark Pryor, if you're Roberts, you're sitting there thinking, my God, we don't want to go get him mid-batter, but looks like he's starting to lose it. And this is probably going to be Buehler's last hitter regardless of what happens, which is what makes it such an exciting at-bat. High heater there, count jammed. Now, with the base open, you might be thinking, oh, well, he doesn't going to pitch around him, right? We have to consider Pete Alonso's on deck, the Mets' best hitter with a ton of pop. And Buehler is thinking to himself, if I walk him, I'm going to get pulled. So hell no, I'm not going to pitch around him. Buehler stares in for the sign. Huge game for both teams. The Dodgers, of course, trying to catch up on the Giants, and the Mets are in a free-for-all. Cutter inside, and oh, McNeil gets punched out and absolutely loses it. He says, you've got to be freaking kidding me. That ball was 2 inches inside. That was a cut piece that ran in on the hands of Julio Rojas, who the only reason I ever heard for him to be worthy of being the Mets manager or be qualified was that he speaks Spanish. That's all that the commentators ever said. Oh, he speaks Spanish, and there we see an excellent frame job there to pull it in just a tiny little bit, as the professor from Back to the Future was there with a mask around his neck in the background pointing to the dugout. That was a freak. But cutter and off the plate. Looks like it's a strike the whole way, and then it moves off the plate. You're not going to do anything but break your bat on that. And Buehler is going to stay out and complete the inning. After the huge strikeout there, usually they would pull a pitcher here in this situation, but this is their ace, Walker Buehler. Ball inside, just as far off the plate as the first one was, and we have to switch over to the Mets broadcast here to really get, of course. And by the way, if you ever hear like, why are people not watching baseball? Why are there people turning the games off? Why is there a lack of viewership? It's because the online player is fucking garbage and will do stuff like that and auto restart ads. We're gonna have to take it a bit back here. McNeil livid, and this is what I was trying to get to. So after the first ball comes in, McNeil is going to see that, oh, it's an inch off the plate, just like mine was. And Buehler kind of bends in like, what? And then McNeil's like, are you fucking kidding me? That's bullshit. Every fucking time. Rojas is really wishing it was Angel Hernandez so he could yell Spanish at him. Look how pissed off McNeil is. Absolutely livid, out of his mind. Another pitch, an inch off the plate. Walker Buehler said, look, that's fucking shit! Fucking go! Jeff McNeil, absolutely apoplectic. He's to that point when you're so mad, you're like, things are coming into your mind and like they don't even really translate to your mouth because of how pissed off you are. And you could see that he like wanted to say something, but he's so fuming that he's just is incandescent with rage and can't believe it. It's beautiful server-side spikes here. I love this MLB. As a little pissant dribbler goes to third base, and Turner has to eat it. And the Mets score a run, and Walker Buehler will certainly be pulled at this point. And he's bitching about the pitch. Said, you gave me the one to McNeil, why don't you give me those? Dave Roberts comes, he's going to signal early. But Jeff McNeil, absolutely livid. Absolutely livid. And what's funny is I wasn't watching the Mets broadcast originally because for whatever reason their broadcast had like 10 huge lag spikes going into the moment I wanted to see. And even when I rewound and turned everything off, they were still there. There were pauses in the video, not true lag spikes. And Buehler's really pissy that he's not getting every call off the plate. Like a true Dodgers pitcher pitching in Dodger Stadium, he expects every advantage in the world. Like back in this, oh, McNeil's still giving it to him. You're shit, get the fuck out of here. Now I wonder if he's talking to the ump or Buehler or both. He's like yelling at Buehler, those are all balls, asshole. So that was the video. Jeff McNeil living, and look at this. Even in a VOD, it just goes into an unskippable pre-roll. In other words, like I'm watching a fucking VOD, and since 2005 on TiVo, oh, you're watching an old game, you already know the result. Well, obviously you can skip through the ads. No, not on this. They're going to hit me with a mandatory unskippable pre-roll. Look at this filth. And then I'm clicking on it and it's trying to open up their ad, but this is garbage. Look at this. Why are people not watching baseball? Click, 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 click. Nothing happens. Like, why are people not watching baseball? Oh, because there's mid-inning ads, ad spam all over the park, and when they want to watch VODs, they can't. That's why people aren't watching baseball.